What's up guys, welcome to Munchkins Gaming, where we take your gaming to the next level. This is Munchkins logging in to bring you another Dissidia Final Fantasy Opera Omnia video, and welcome back to another video guide. In today's video is going to be on the Transcendence Tier 2. We are going to be covering every single Crucible and of course the Reckoning stage as well in this video. So leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already, and let's get this video started. Alright guys, so we'll start this video off with the Lufenia orb and the fight for the Crucible 1. So in this particular fight, the Lufenia orb starts when the boss's HP hit less than 80%. You will get 5 extra Lufenia orb counter when the target is delayed. Lightning, Garland, and Aranea are some of the characters that you can bring for this one. Ramza is probably another one, but you probably want Ramza as a secondary delayer if you are planning to bring him along, as you don't really get a lot of delays with Ramza. You have to remember only his LD can delay, and it's not exactly a lot of ability count, let's just put it that way. So things to look out for in this particular fight: basically the two ads can move the boss's turn to follow up their own turn. So basically when they attack you, the boss's turn will be next regardless of where the boss is in the turn order count. So you can keep on delaying the boss, but if the ads do get a turn, they do take the boss's turn right next to them. Basically the boss also resummons the ads at a certain HP threshold and will absorb the light and earth element. The biggest thing in this particular Transcendence tier is all the bosses cannot be knocked back. So characters that you want to bring in this particular fight include Lightning, Garland, Aranea, and again Ramza is going to be technically your secondary delayer if you really want a secondary one. Honestly, I don't feel like you really need a secondary delayer, but if you do want one, then Ramza is a good alternative. Team example is going to be like Garland, and then you get a support character, and then you get another DPS, so you can burn down the boss or the ads pretty quickly. The summon I would recommend is Ramuh, but you can definitely bring someone else. Alright, now let's go on to the Crucible number 2. Now the Lufenia orb for this one starts at 100% of the HP and gets cancelled when they hit less than 80% of their HP, and again will reappear once they are less than 50% HP. You will get +1 when the target takes elemental weakness damage. So if you have anything that can do thunder, water, I believe dark is another one, fire is another one, those elements, they're gonna be a good pick for this particular fight. So Lightning, Mog, Faris, Ignis, especially if you have an enchanter. Enchanters are actually pretty good on this particular fight. And yeah, things to look out for this particular fight is the boss does do like AoE Brave plus HP attack quite frequently, and they also get a Brave boost at certain HP threshold. The one that I noticed was less than 80% and less than 50%. They basically get a huge amount of Brave, so you might want to time your attacks to hit when the boss's turn is not right next to you when you hit these HP threshold, because basically if you hit the threshold and the boss's turn is next, they basically will just kill you. So that is one of the tips I have for you in this particular fight. They do resist magic and ice element as well, and they are immune to HP silence, and again these boss cannot be knocked back. Now for characters to bring here, I already mentioned Lightning, Mog, Faris, Ignis, a lot of enchanters here. And example, basically if you have an enchanter, go ahead and put them in that team. You need a little bit of support here and DPS and summon for this one. Again, I would pick Ramuh, so you can at least do like a paralysis for one turn at the very least. Alright guys, so now let's talk about the Reckoning. So this is a total of 3 waves. The first wave starts, the Lufenia orb starts at less than 80% of their HP, and you get +4 when the target takes any of these elements: fire, thunder, water, and dark element. Lightning, Mog, Ferris, Ignis are the best choice. Again, if you have an enchanter, it just makes things so much easier. They do single target HP attacks as well as AoE Brave plus HP attacks, and again, these bosses cannot be knocked back. Moving on to wave number 2, the Lufenia orb starts immediately at the start of the battle and will cancel when the boss reincarnates. You get +5 when the target is delayed, so again, Lightning, Garland, Arnea are the best choice for this one. The boss does do some AoE HP attacks. When you see the ult attack, just be prepared for an HP attack rather than a brave attack. There is a chance that it will just use a brave attack, but chances are it's gonna be an HP attack. It will also recover a lot of HP when it gets a turn after it uses reincarnation, so do not let it have a turn after it reincarnates. So you might want to use your summon in this one, or even your burst phase for this one, so it doesn't get a turn. Again, the boss cannot be knocked back. And finally, at the last wave, the Lufenia orb starts at less than 80% of their HP, and you get +2 when the target has 5 or more debuffs. Now, it's important to note here that as long as they have 5 debuffs, the counter basically won't go up. So Faris, Lion, Caius have multiple debuffs that they can apply straight away. So, you know, those are great picks. However, I feel like using them as a call instead is another option rather than putting these characters in your actual team. But we'll go over that a little bit later. Now the bosses do some AoE HP attacks, and the biggest thing here, I guess for the mechanic, is when the boss is in killer mode, all your recovery effects will damage you instead. So be careful using your healing abilities during killer mode. You can use your healing abilities if they are not on their killer mode. So there's that. And of course, again, the bosses cannot be knocked back. Now, as for characters in your team for this particular fight, it's always going to depend on the 6 characters you end up using for the Crucible 1 and Crucible 2. So I guess characters that I would recommend somewhere along the lines are Lightning, Mog, Faris, Ignis, Garland, Caius, Terra, Arnea, Aerith, Squall. There's a whole lot of different combinations you can use, but it is limited to the 6 characters you end up using for both Crucibles. So is that example for the team here is going to be insert an enchanter so you can deal with the first wave, and then you need a delayer for the second wave, and for the last a slot, I would recommend a support character. Now, why didn't I recommend a debuffer? Well, the thing is, you can use your call abilities as your debuffer, so chances are the bosses aren't really going to be going through all the debuffs. I think, like, two Faris calls is quite enough if you have her LD, and that should last you through the entire fight. Chances are you're not even gonna be the debuff won't even count down to 0. So yeah, I would just recommend just using the call ability to apply the debuffs rather than using a slot or a debuffer slot for your main team. Summon for this one, I still recommend Ramuh, even though you probably won't be paralyzing the last wave of the boss because you're going to be applying the debuffs. You can use the summon on the second wave instead, so that is another option. Alright guys, so I think we'll end the video right here, but of course, before we actually end the video, just my final thoughts regarding the fight, and fights, I should say. Honestly, I think Crucible 2 was the most difficult for me because I didn't end up using anyone with a burst at the start. But at the end of it all, I decided to use lightning in that particular fight, and you know, with her burst effect, it was pretty much enough, just enough for me to actually clear the fight. So the Reckoning itself, I didn't really have too much issues. Apart from my first try, I ended up using a lot of my abilities at the start. Here's where I would recommend using your HP attack plus, you know, those other pluses. Basically, if your brave is high enough that you can cap, don't use your abilities then, because you're gonna be running out of your abilities. This is a pretty long fight. It's pretty much like 4 waves instead of 3, because the second boss does revive, and you know, you're gonna be using a lot of your abilities here. So I would highly suggest, if you can, of course, avoid it. Not use too much of your abilities in the first and second wave, and try to use your HP attack plus. If you're using Garland, even his HP attack plus, as long as you have the LD buff icon, you should be able to do follow-up attacks, and he does a decent amount of damage already. So you know, off turn damage, if you decided to bring Yang along, it's another character I didn't mention, or you know, if you got Furion or anything, any off turn damage is going to help you you know, stack up those damage and not end up using a lot of your abilities. Of course, using like a double support like I did in this particular case, I went with Aerith and Ignis, and I was pretty much always almost on cap on the first 2 waves, and Garland ended up just using his HP attacks, and that ended up working out well for me. So that's the biggest tip I'm probably going to, you know, mention when it comes to the Reckoning fight. Anyway guys, that is it for this video. Please do remember to click like and subscribe if you haven't already. It does help the channel, and I would really appreciate it if you share this video as well. Let a friend know who's struggling. You know, hopefully this video helps them clear the Transcendence fight. Anyway, leave down in the comments below your complete team for the Crucible 1 and 2, and of course the Reckoning fight. Let me know down in the comments below, and if you have any different strategies from what I use, please leave them down in the comments below. This is Munchkins logging off. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next level.